Madam Mayor, it is 9:03 and we are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the agenda meeting of January 26th, 2022. Madam Clerk, want to call the roll?
Certainly, Mayor Betty Resch,
Here.
Vice Mayor Herman Robinson,
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga,
Present.
Commissioner Christopher McVoy,
Here.
Commissioner Kimberly Stokes is absent.
Sound. Is that feedback?
Herman, you got two feeds up. You got to turn one of them, mute one of them.
Oh, he does have.
Melissa, I think you can mute Herman yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Is that better?
Seems it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that's better.
Great. So welcome to everybody and to our agenda workshop, which I really appreciate having these, and I almost wish we could do it more often because it is kind of a nice time to be able to just chat informally. Tonight we have the pool, which is going, the workshop for the pool. And I passed out that list last night, and all that was, I didn't make any, it's nothing that, it's just what came off of that sheet of 5. And as I read it, I just realized we agree on 98% of the stuff. So I think the question, we'll obviously talk about it tonight, but this afternoon, but I was encouraged to see how much agreement there was on the dais about what we're looking for. I guess one of the questions is going to be, should we go for an RFP or should we go for an invitation to bid? And I'm just doing this just to warm us up for tonight. One of the questions, I think the serious question is, do we separate the pool area from the upstairs area of the oceanfront park? Herman, that's a nod to you. Do we do them separately or do we do them together? And I don't know, do any of you have any feelings about that right now?
Madam
Commissioner
Mayor,
Maliga's hand is up.
thank you, Melissa. I didn't get the form that you had passed out. Is there
Oh,
any way
I
to
thought
get
I'd emailed it to you. I will email it to you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Are you going to be here tonight?
I'm going to be on Zoom. I cannot find anyone to come sit at the house, but I will be live on Zoom from my office.
I will get that to you. I thought I had sent that to you yesterday, but I will get it to you today. And all I did was take
Thank
the
you.
5 boxes that we had and just distill them down. Herman?
Yeah, I just am interested in paying for the pool. And if we're going to ignore possible income and just focus on the pool, I think that's and fiscally irresponsible for ignoring the potential income from an invitation to negotiate what we want. And the invitation to negotiate can respond by just focusing on the pool, or just focusing on a restaurant, or including the whole oceanfront park as an option to manage. But
I'm in agreement with you. I'm in agreement with you, Mr. Robinson, 100%.
No, we
business,
need to look at the finance, of course, but the question of separation, because of the upstairs building is a whole different financial consideration than the pool itself, and it really complicates it. My feeling, and just me, that if we, of course we have to look at the finances of the pool, Herman. We've got hopefully, and I'm looking at one, where's that $6 million? But to look for admission prices, to look. So Herman, are you saying that if we take a situation and we look with the invitation to bid, I'm asking you a question. Is it your feeling then, and I'm looking for, advice here, that if we go for an invitation to bid, we have more flexibility in discussing the financial part of it? Is that your feeling?
no, less. Because they're going to bid on the construction of it. An invitation to negotiate
That's what I meant,
it's-
invitation to negotiate.
Okay,
Invitation, yeah.
invitation to negotiate. And if, even if we take 60 days, 90 days and a cutoff, we will have explored the possibility and then move on to just focusing on, well, I would then have, hope that the city moves forward with a pool. I am pretty interested in having a pool, but I am very concerned about paying for it and not using our underperforming assets to the max. That's all. I think we should, in our haste, I know, it was mentioned that we need to act out of a sense of urgency, but then we need to act cautiously too. And taking 60 or 90 days to put out an invitation to negotiate for a income source that includes the pool, I think would be well spent. Good.
I don't think anybody disagrees with you. I mean, it needs to be financially responsible.
Let's do it.
Well, the thing about the upstairs of it just involves, it just opens up so many, I believe that we agree that we want to have a pool. I think we've come there, Herman, I think we've gotten there. But I think the upstairs of the casino is much more complicated a question, because what we have like no idea. Do we give the second floor to somebody? What do we do with it? So I would, when the staff gave us the invitation to invitation to negotiate, and I said at the first meeting, I mean, they did break it down into, do you want to do 1, 2, or 1, 2, or 1 and 2? So I don't think that was a bad action on their part. Part of me, and I'm nodding to Chris here, part of me says, well, if we know about the pool, let's go out for RFP, because then we know what we want. We're telling people what we want, and what are they going to come back with? I have a question. With an invitation to negotiate, we can simultaneously be negotiating with different groups at the same time. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So, I mean, I think, like I said, I mean, I think we have pretty much a fair agreement about what we're looking for, affordable, useful, all that stuff. And I'll give you that list. I think the bigger discussion is going to be about how we go forward. And I'd like to, let's think about that. And let's not do it till midnight tonight. I think we all have an idea about how we want to go. So I haven't heard from you, Chris. You're uncharacteristically quiet, but I see your hand is up.
There we go. I managed to unmute. Yeah, I mean, other people had thoughts, so I wanted to hear those. And I hear, Herman, I hear you very much on, obviously, it's nice to have a wish list of what we want. And I agree with the mayor that I think we have quite a bit of agreement of what we would like to see and what objectives we have for the pool, which is very helpful to see that level of agreement. Thank you to the mayor for synthesizing that also from all the different input. I hear you, Herman, on, okay, great, we got the list, but how are we going to pay for this? I think there are many options, including an ITN, but I also see it very much like the mayor that we're mixing very different things. I think we're better off focusing, since we have a pretty good idea of what we want at the pool, focusing on that and focusing on what are our various options for financing. My concern about the ITN is, as I understand it, that's basically would be a public-private partnership, that some private entity says, okay, you're short X million dollars. Let's see what you got on the table for your assets that we can have access to and do things with. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll cover your 6, but we want to be able to have control over these, and these things. And sometimes you hear about that in advance, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're left with an asset at the end that may or may not be useful. I think, to me, it all boils down to there's no free lunch. If you want somebody to help finance it, they're going to want things out of it. And that's not unreasonable at all. They would be putting a lot of money in. And then we shift from a community asset that we view really as a park to something that changes very much changes flavor as a money-making thing. I think we should do our best at pursuing other avenues, keep it focused on the pool. Definitely ITN itself for what we do with the restaurant on the second north floor, north end. I have no problem with that. That invites creativity for that one, but keep it separate from the pool.
Okay, let me ask a question, and I don't know if any of our staff can help me here. What Commissioner, I hear what you're saying, Chris. Is that true with an ITN? Is that actually an opportunity, an invitation for private partnership, private-public partnership, or is that not necessarily the case? And I don't know. What do we negotiate with a group?
I mean, Madam Mayor, technically, a public-private partnership can be sought after through an ITN or an RFP.
Right.
It's not committed to one or another
So
specific.
if we put an ITN out, it doesn't have to necessarily, and some private-public partnerships, I understand your concerns, Chris, but sometimes they work.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes they're a good thing. So does an I guess that's my question. If we put out an ITN, and I'm in agreement with you about separating them, I just think it makes more sense.
What the last you said? I didn't hear it.
I said, let me repeat it. I agree with you. Let me say it again. I agree with you. I know. We're going to mark that one down, huh?
There we go. No, I just hear it.
It happens. You know what happens.
A lot.
It does happen a lot. I know. I kid you. Mr. McVoy.
I'm totally with it.
My sense of humor is one thing you're all going to have to put up with for the next couple of years.
I like it.
I'm glad. I think we all have a good sense of humor about this. We've never, we've been pretty good about that. So, okay. So an ITN, does an ITN by definition require a private-public partnership?
Good question. And maybe for Juan, if it doesn't require a public-private partnership, what kind of entity would respond to an ITN that wouldn't be private? And since we're public, then if they were private, seems like by definition, it sort of would be of some flavor. I don't know about officially or not, but.
Madam
Yep.
Mayor,
Sure.
just to answer that question, I don't know, I saw Valentina seemed like she was going to make a comment.
Okay, I was
on that.
wondering, purchasing, I was looking for the finance.
Yeah, I can start and then Christy can fill in. In our ITN, in the final draft, we did not specifically ask for the public and private partnership. We can get different options and we can do that during the negotiations. Christy is, if you want to add something to that.
Yeah, I think, the public-private partnership is asking, someone to be creative in terms of potentially financing something, designing something, and building something. Initially, we years ago had done an ITN for that type of thing, and then we moved into a more traditional, the city designs it, and then the city bids it out, and that was the CPZ project. So I think one of the decisions for tonight is, do you want to put out an ITN for the pool to see what different thoughts people may do, whether it's public-private partnership or whether it's more of a traditional design build? Or do you want to be more in control of the actual design of the pool, work with CPZ, who we still have under contract, to come up with that design and then do a straight bid for it to be constructed? And that's where you guys got to make the decision of, what would you like to see? Would you like to see more creativity potentially with the ITN process? Or do you want to have more control over what actually is designed for the pool and built?
Tell me your thoughts, Commissioner. Carmen?
Madam Mayor, if I can add to that, so what we have planned for this evening or this afternoon out of course, these conversations and the information that you need that will be very important to make these decisions and the direction you want to go. And hearing our financial situation or status may help guide you through that process. So tonight, our first step will be presenting our financial position and what sources we have that are available for this project. So that will help you, guide you to the direction you need to go for a more sound decision. And so I think that'll be very helpful for you this evening. And so at that time, we can also talk about of course, your common design wants and needs and the elements of the pool. So we will have the CPZ present that could, one, give us the background on the design and or answer questions on how the desired wants affect the design of the pool and what could happen from that point. And then at that time, we can then continue that discussion on which direction we go. Do we do RFP? Do we seek for ITN or some other type of mechanism to move this project forward? So, but I think that the financial position will help guide us through this process and may answer a lot of questions that we are talking about today, this morning.
I have a question. As part of that financial packet, have you looked at admission prices? You know, that's the not just how much it's going to cost, but just what it would take to make it viable.
No. What we're presenting to you is what sources, financial resources, are available from the city. And so that will then tell what can the city put towards this project. And if we have funds, which I can kind of give you a preview that we are very limited, but if whatever we have to contribute to it, and what do we need to make up the remaining funds necessary for this type of project. So, so what we're hoping that whatever direction we go, which was the advantage of the ITN, is to involve those who may seem interested in this type of venture that could give us some idea on what revenue generating elements may be necessary in order to make this project viable.
So it would be a more if we did the ITN, it would be a more comprehensive view of the project, not just here's what we want to build. I'll get you, Herman. Here's what we want to build, and this is how will you build it?
Right, because and to comparison with the RFP process, as mentioned earlier, it's a response to a design to construct and design the project, which then means that we will have to then be able to put the resources in that project from our what's available from our standpoint.
Okay, so if with the ITN, we actually have more of a voice in the creative process.
Correct. It leaves more options for us to visit. But like I said, this is all driven by our financial position. And I think you'll get a better picture of it this evening.
Okay, Herman, you're up first.
Well, I'm just concerned about us politically managing a pool or even designing a pool politically. There are people that do this professionally, make money at it. And if they can give us a monthly check and they make money somehow, we would be in a better position, I think, politically, if we avoided, we're charging too much, not enough. We wanted, some constituents wanted this, and we didn't give them that.
Well, that's always going to happen, Herman. That's all. Remember, if we build the best pool in the world, there will be people that will say it's a terrible pool.
And we put it in the contract that,
They can't say that.
Yeah,
right.
the damn First Amendment.
But we put it in the contract that we approve what they're going to do.
Well, I think that's part of the negotiation.
Yes.
We
and
approve.
my other question is, can we put out both at the same time? Just for a direct.
I wondered that myself, and we're going to get an answer from our lawyer or our Valentina.
It would be a little weird to put out an ITN and an RFP at the same time for the same issue. I think your ITN is going to afford you the ability really to do anything and everything, depending on how it's drafted. Usually with an RFP, you're sort of more, not completely guiding the respondents, but more so than say an invitation to bid. So if you look at it on a spectrum, your invitation to bid, you tell them exactly what you want constructed. An RFP, they have a little bit more creativity of what they design and submit. With an ITN, it's really, okay, tell us what you suggest, and we'll take a look at it. So that's why in the past, we've tried to use the ITN to create some more, I guess, creativity, energy about what could be done up there.
What have we used an ITN for?
We used it for the pool and casino complex back in, I think it was it 2014.
To get CBG
15.
on track. Okay, to get CBG.
No,
No,
to get proposals.
CPZ, we had to do through the Consultants Competitive
Oh,
Negotiation
okay.
Act
Right.
to get them under contract
Right.
to design, because that's sort of when we decided not to follow the ITN, but perhaps the city
Okay.
should hire a designer to design it and then bid it out to build it.
And we did that, and I think, you know, what we do have a couple good working beginnings of what they put together. The things that we got. Chris, I see your hand up again.
Yeah, thank you.
We're still up.
Or it went up or something. I think a big difference in my mind, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding, with the RFP process, as Christy was just saying, we pretty much specify what we want and say, what would it cost to build this, and are you interested in building it? And then it kind of stops there. You want the Eiffel Tower, you say, oh, we want it this many stories and built out of metal, and they come back and say, we can have it done for you in 3 years and it'll cost you this. And then what you do with the Eiffel Tower afterwards is up to us. We might manage it with a totally different entity. We might manage it ourselves. With the ITN, as I understand it, it's more of a package deal that we're saying, come with whatever ideas you want, except theme parks. We said no on that. And
Hotels.
kind of right. And kind of the implication that your proposal can include that you manage it however you want to manage it for the next X number of years. And it seems to be the minimum is 30. And and this is just an opinion, but it's my opinion or feeling or whatever. I think we should very much not turn the management over to the same entity that builds it. That they're two very different entities. And I think we do have strong objectives of what we want to do with the pool. I think we have a pretty good idea of what we want. So get one person to build it to more or less to our specs. They might have some suggestions along the way and say, hey, you can save a little money here, and we might go back and forth a little bit. But basically we give them a fair amount of direction. And then once built, we are open to manage it however we want, whether we want to do it or whether we want to contract it out. With a very specific contract of this is what we do want, this is what we don't, including the First Amendment. Nobody can complain. And I'm much more comfortable with that approach than with a combined approach.
A combined
But
approach.
that's just, well, combined.
So, I mean, my understanding is with the ITN, we can say, like, here's what we want. Here's an initial plan from CBG. And here's a list of things that you have to include. And that's that's part of the design would be part of what we negotiate. I don't get the impression, correct me, Valentina or Christy, if I'm wrong, that if we do an ITN, we're just automatically saying, you design it, you come back to us. I think we can give them some more guidance.
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing too, with, I'm just going to say this. I mean, historically, the city has not been real. I mean, I'm on the fence about who manages and who runs it. Okay, I've got no opinion about that right now. I have to learn more. But I have to say, we're not the greatest managers all the time. It's a big project, and if if there is someone that can come in and do a, there's one, I don't know their names, but God, I've been approached by a developer who's very interested in the pool, and the old state legislator, what is her name? I'm blaming on the COVID. Names are just like gone now. She was a state legislator. Now she's a lobbyist, and she brought a group who's very interested in that, doing just that, managing, not walking away at the end.
Was that Sharon Merchant?
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate that. And her group
Madam
that
Ma-
she, yeah.
Go
Sarah?
ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had my hand up. I feel as if we're already having the workshop right now because we spent 30 minutes talking about what we're talking about tonight. And I don't think that it's fair because Kim's not here to be part of this conversation.
Is Kim gonna be here tonight? Carmen?
Yes, I believe so. She didn't mention about this evening.
Oh, she will be here tonight.
That's my
Oh, okay,
understanding.
I thought she was, okay, great, I'm glad to hear that. Okay, well, I just wanted to, this is kind of the nudgy little conversation that we can have tonight, so we have a little preparation today, that we can have a little preparation for tonight, so we can move on, that's fine. I just wanted to open it up and get somebody's ideas, and that sort of thing. Sarah, is there anything let's start with District 1, we have a little more time. Is there anything you want to bring up today?
Well, obviously, I'm sure everybody saw the news interview in regards to the cemetery. I asked Christy and Will to send the rest of the dais some information that I had received. I am not going out and talking to the media ahead of time. Besides, I'm just trying to get my ducks in order before I present to the rest of the board.
But how did it get
the
to the
fact-
paper then? I was curious. How did it get to the paper if you haven't?
Not to the paper. Todd from the channel.
Joe.
Todd reached out to me from the news channel via email, which I have proof of because he reached out to me through city email. And I don't know if he heard me on the dais say we really need to talk about the cemeteries. So he wanted to do a story on it. I said, sure, I'm not opposed. I'm not, there's nothing I'm hiding. And then he wanted to interview somebody who had family there, who wasn't afraid of being part of it. So that's how Sam got involved. I reached out to a couple people and Sam said yes. He wasn't afraid of answering some questions. So with all due respect, that wasn't meant to make the board feel as if anything was happening behind their back, because obviously it wasn't. I've been talking about this multiple times on the dais, and I'm doing research and community outreach to see if it's something that the dais should even consider. Because if the family members aren't interested and the community is not interested, well, then it's a dead conversation. But really losing that kind of money every single year is fiscally irresponsible of us. And the bigger part is that my predecessor unfortunately made a promise that I was in a meeting at 2 years prior saying that the city was putting in gates and fencing. And we don't have $800,000 to put in the fencing and the gate. So I cannot commit to that promise that he made. So that's where that conversation's coming from. More to follow in the near days with that. And
Well, I was going to say, I want to thank you for diving in a little bit on that, because, I don't think anyone realized it, and that is a lot of money to lose every year. And, how the families feel about it, I certainly respect, but I think, if it's losing money and there's a way to stop that hemorrhage of money, that would continue to have a cemetery there. We've got to look at the city, not just the folks, everybody. We have to look at everybody. But I
completely agree with you on that.
Thanks
Madam
for looking
Mayor.
into that, though. I think we were all just a little surprised. I know I was a little surprised when I saw the article. I was like, So.
Well, and the thing happens is that I get multiple phone calls about motorcycles riding through the cemetery, dirt bikes, dogs defecating on graves. What are we going to do?
Surprised we don't have more complaints. Yeah.
Well, I have an abundance of them, so I will start forwarding them to you if you'd like.
Share
everything from
share the
why isn't the cemetery lit up at night? Well, the cemetery is not lit up at night because you're not supposed to be in there at night. So then there's a security and safety issue. We just cannot take care of those cemeteries at the level of respect that we should be. And in addition, we're losing money. So there's that. And the reason
we've already had,
and thank you, Madam Mayor. I've had people call me and let me know that there is a very interested person who is a community member who already owns cemeteries who's interested. I said, I cannot speak to that person. I don't want to muddy the waters. this person can keep up with the conversations that are happening on the dais and, follow where it leads.
That's great.
The only other thing that I've been hearing a lot about is the city's answers to food trucks and a lot of confusion. People have gone out and purchased food trucks and then applied for a license to be told we don't do food trucks in the city, but yet businesses have food trucks every day of the week.
Right.
Patrick Livingston was getting ready to take over the House Lounge. I was told by Joyce Brown, oh, he's going to put a food truck back there. I'm like, stop. I'm like, he can't put a food truck back there. So I called Patrick. I said, don't sign a lease because
No.
the landlords are just going to tell you what they want you to hear. I'm like, please call the city and do your due diligence first. So I would like to have a discussion in the soon future on the dais of what are our rules and regulations for food trucks and how do we make it equitable for all? We have a couple of people that have conditional use and some people think that that's inequitable and unfair.
Okay.
So that's the only thing that I would like to talk about in the future.
Great topic. Great topic. We're all hearing that, pros and cons of them. Chris, you got your hand up.
I do. I have, I was a little concerned to see the television article about the cemetery when it wasn't something that we as a commission had made any decisions on. But I get very uncomfortable with descriptions of we're losing money on the cemetery or we're losing money on this or we're being fiscally irresponsible. I think that's a very misleading statement. That we could say, you know what, we're losing money on the police department or we're losing money on the fire department or we're losing money on the roads.
Library.
City government is not something that is supposed to be making money. City government is something that provides services to its community and raises
Correct, but we
tax.
cannot, with all due respect, Chris, we can't even do that right now. We don't have the funds to do the necessary things that the cemetery needs.
That may be that we have to adjust what we can do, but particularly with the cemetery where you have a community that has lots of people with a lot of history in it and family members buried there, and to say to them, well, sorry, we're losing money, so we're just going to get rid of it or whatever.
We're not getting rid of it. She's not talking about that.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about bringing in somebody who can elevate the level of service, who can fix the headstones.
And
No.
I would be extremely cautious about the idea that, again, it's an illusional, there's a free lunch.
It's not illusional. We are losing $400,000 a year, which means the cemetery, without doing any improvements, Chris, is costing us $380,000 to $400,000 between the two of them every single year. We're only doing a little over $50,000. The city can't continue that.
I'm all in favor of outsourcing the library, outsourcing road building, all sorts of things because we lose money on it. No, we don't lose money on the library. It costs us a certain amount to operate a library. It costs us a certain amount to keep the cemetery up. That's not losing money on it. That's a very...
It's the same conversation as when the pool was closed. The pool was losing $275,000 a year, but was closed with the flip of a wrist because it was losing money, and that was an amenity.
And that's part of my point, is describing something, a service that a city provides, as losing money is disingenuous. It's.
And I hear you, Chris, but unfortunately we have 42,000 residents, and not all 42,000 residents have the opportunity or are using the cemetery as a service, whereas they use the library or they can use the pool. I mean, if you look at the fact that we only have about 10% of the people who are in our cemetery are residents.
Well, I think most of them are deceased that are in the cemetery who use it.
Dying to get in. They're dying to get in.
But that was a good one. So, I mean, that's why I'm reaching out to the family members. I'm talking people who have 15, 20, 25 plots. And I want to know, are you happy with the level of service you're receiving? Would you be open to somebody else coming in and elevating the level of service? We are not digging up graves. We're not moving bodies. We're not doing any of that. We're not trying to make money on the cemetery.
Well, if you're complaining,
we're not trying to bleed money either.
And I think the illusion is that somebody is going to provide the service or even more service than we do for less cost than it costs us.
Well, like I said, there's already a lady who's in the funeral business and in the cemetery business, and she is very aware of the cemeteries in question. And that's why I said I can't talk to her, because if she's really interested, it will, but that's why I'm getting that's why I'm doing all the research. I didn't mean to take up the whole 30 minutes of conversation on this. I'm going to continue to do more research and bring data and facts back to the board, and then we can vote.
I have a problem with data and facts. That's fine. Just be careful of,
That's your wheelhouse.
You said I have no problem.
Yeah, no,
What's
I
that?
said, that's why I said, I know that's his wheelhouse. He loves data.
yeah, no, I thought the short description that our internal auditor provided, presumably at your request, was helpful. I didn't have a problem with that, but it's describing city services as losing money, I think, does a disservice to our taxpayers of how these things work.
Well, and that's
Madam
why I'm
Mayor,
considering all the
Can I jump in
taxpayers.
really quick? Maybe just help.
Go ahead.
Just to help modify the conversation, because the conversation's not going to go away now the pace is out of the tube. I think what everyone's trying to say, and Commissioner McBoy, is there's a level of subsidy that the city provides in its general fund to certain operations that is just the cost of providing services to the residents, the library, the roads, the sidewalks. These things all have a subsidy that's given, and there's money lost. But I think changing the terminology, instead of looking at it not as a profit center or a profit center making service, it's a duty, it's a service that we provide that requires a certain level of subsidy. And at times, the revenues that profits that service generates isn't enough to cover, the expenses. So I think that will help churn it away from like some sort of business that we're in to more, it's the service that we provide, like a park that is subsidized, right? And we know we lose money on those. And I think what Commissioner Malik is trying to do, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, is we're trying to reduce certain services that we do by, researching them and exploring options and reducing the subsidy that happens to reduce some of the pressure on the general fund. Because these services all come out of our general fund budget. And when you look at everything in totality, with the rising cost of goods and services and payroll and everything else, I think it's prudent, financially prudent, for all of us to always looking at the services that we provide. And if there's ever any ability to help reduce those subsidies without negatively impacting our residents, then that's just, a fiscally responsible thing to do. So I think everyone's kind of saying the same thing and being cautious about, because it's a delicate, subject matter. But maybe that'll help, soften the conversation just a little bit in the approach about it.
And Madam Mayor, if I can add to what Juan
Please.
said, and certainly in local government, you definitely want to, as best you can, try to have departments who are providing service be able to self-sustain itself through, of course, the cost of the services that you're providing. Like Juan said, you're subsidizing, but you sometimes want departments to be self-sufficient, where the fees that you seek cover the cost and expense of providing that service. So yes, that's something that we want to do in each department where possible. And so certainly the cemetery operation definitely falls in that category, and it's definitely worth exploring.
Thank you.
And I'll give you an example that'll help later, and then we'll change subjects.
Okay.
When
Thank you.
Lauren Bennett creates a recreational program, let's say youth soccer, right? There's a registration fee that's charged. That registration fee it's identified to help just offset the cost for putting on the service. We're not looking to make money, but we don't want to subsidize, right, the sport either, because then that takes from the general fund balance. So we want it to be cost neutral. You'll hear us sometimes say it's 100% cost recovery for our indirect expenses, right, or direct expenses. So there's always, to Carmen's point, when we look at these service centers, I'll call them call centers, funds or whatnot. Just keep that in mind. In the cemetery, if you look at it, and again, it's a delicate, because it involves people. If you just look at the numbers, I think what Commissioner Maliga again is saying, it's about the level of subsidy that's been occurring for years and years and years, and then trying to do a better job of servicing and providing a level of service that one would expect when one's family member is placed there.
I'm curious how, I don't know if everybody knows this, how to buy a plot in our cemetery, how does that compare to buying a plot with Quattlebaum or, Dignity or any of those?
Well, I'm sure that Carmen can answer this, but I had a detailed conversation with Jamie yesterday. For the level of service that we are providing, we are at the max fee. Now, if somebody comes in and provides a higher service, then obviously they can charge more. It's kind of like, I'll use cars, for example. You can't charge the price of a Maserati for a Kia.
Right.
So that's kind of, it's kind of where we're at. So we did just increase our fees last budget to what Mr. Brown thought was palatable for municipal owned cemeteries and what we are offering for that price. So somebody else who comes in will be able to elevate that level of service and maybe charge more, not extremely more, but still give our residents a discount. And again, less than 10% of the families right now are residents, and still give our residents a discount. So that's, again, that's all the stuff that I'm working on. And I'm going to put together a good fact sheet that I'm sure that Mr. McBoy will appreciate, because it's not my wheelhouse and it's proving to be fun in the research. But just a simple fact sheet. And the community of Whispering Palms and Osborne Community Center has asked me to come speak to a lot of the families that have people there, which I'm doing next week. And just to hear from them, what are your concerns? How do you feel? What do you think the city could do to make the cemetery better? And the only reason I'm talking about this is because I wish they were both in somebody else's district, but both of them just happened to land right in the middle of District 1. And again, my predecessor making a promise that we cannot fulfill financially.
To be continued.
To be
See,
thank you.
TBD.
Thank
To be determined, to be continued. Thank you.
Okay, I have something I'd like to bring up, and I thought about it a lot in Washington. They talked a lot about how the nature of business is changing and retail is changing and services is changing, and how there's like a new class of micro businesses, like gig work almost that we do. And I'm quite sure that there are quite a few people in the city or now in the world who have home occupations. I think it would be a good thing to take a look at what we allow for home occupations and maybe loosening up a little bit, because if somebody's putting on eyelashes or somebody's doing nails or somebody's doing hair, people are struggling. And I think if we can make it easier for them to earn a living at home. I think there's also new regulations from the state about home kitchens, because that's another thing I've been interested in is, making, these ladies that cook for everybody when they get home, they sell their dinners to the guys that come from the fields. I'd like to make that easier. That's something again, future. I would like to look at our home occupations and maybe assess, maybe we could loosen up a little bit on them to make people easier to make a living. We have a lot of artists in the city that make their living by art, and technically they can't do it in their house.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't agree with you more, Mayor, on that. And I'm glad you mentioned the art one, because there has been work on that in the past, quite a bit of work in the community of a group of artists did a lot of research about other communities. And I agree that, obviously there need to be some degree of regulations that you make sure that whatever somebody's doing at home isn't causing a major problem to neighbors or whatever. But I think it's quite possible to work out that balance.
Yeah, because right now it says nobody can
and-
come to the house. And if you're doing one head at a time or one set of eyelashes at a time, it's not going to be a big it's not going to be
Exactly.
a big
Exactly. Many of the things, or somebody selling paintings, there's not going to be 15 zillion people parked showing up. I mean, if one person comes a week, you're probably lucky. So I agree that we should be, and I agree that assessment that economically things are changing. from, brick and mortar stores is not where it's going to be. And we do need to help people. Thank you
And
for
there-
bringing that.
Sure, and there
Madam-
is money, there is money apparently from what I heard, and I've got to distill this all down of where to get the money. That the federal government is really understanding this and recognizing this and looking to give grants for home occupations for they're calling them micro businesses, to get them like 3,000, 5,000, not big grants, just like if you have to get a extra, whatever. So I'd like to pursue this in the future.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, it's
Yeah.
Christie. There was a bill passed last year that frees up home occupations. I'll get with William Waters on it and see where they're at and looking at that compared to our current codes. But that was something that they did pass to allow for greater home occupations.
Good.
Was
That was the state
local?
did that?
The
State.
state did that. The state did that, and there, you can still have some reasonable restrictions, depending on what the actual use is, so you don't become disruptive to the whole neighborhood.
Right.
But I'm not sure what we may or may not have done in terms of addressing that within our code.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
So
so
I'll
that's
get with William Waters on it, and we'll take a look at it.
anything that we can do to help our residents financially without actually giving, to live better in our town is something I'd like to do. So
Madam
thank-
Mayor.
Yep.
And just a reminder, and maybe the clerk can help get this, this very subject matter was discussed. Herman, you may remember maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago at great lengths.
Yeah,
Okay, and it started and it began from good intentions. And then the conversation happened and obviously all the obvious things came up: traffic, crime, quality of life, the enforcement of it. How do you control it? So
Parking and
it-
signage.
parking, signage. I think it would be helpful if maybe the clerk can help provide a link to when that meeting occurred and you guys go back and kind of review what was said. And then that'll help because, William obviously was here and we do have experience, having this big community conversation because it was a big conversation that was had. So I would encourage everybody to take a little bit of time and go back and review all of that.
well, it may be time for the discussion and I'm sure there's going to be opposition to anything.
Yeah.
That's a given. But I think we should look into it.
Yeah, and I'm not discouraging by no means. I just want to give you guys a heads up. There's a lot of information and a lot of conversation that might be helpful.
I
as it-
remember when that-
with the
that
new,
was-
yeah.
When that was happening and okay,
I've got some topics.
okay.
The quality of life that we were talking about, the noise, there's the art studio is got speakers outside that I don't know that that's even allowed. And the volume was outrageous on Saturday night. And I asked them, that they feel justified, but it's not acceptable.
Well, my
And-
understanding is that every time there's been a complaint, the police have come in with the decibel meter. It's been acceptable. What is the time on?
If you were outside, you could not speak side to side and hear each other. And the speakers outside, if they had that volume inside, that's their business. But this is affecting everybody.
I can hear music from down the street, the same. So why them and not Dave's?
I wish you would visit on a Saturday night when they have their speakers outside on the street. Something should be done about it. The other thing was the quality of life in the dumping on empty lots. Their standard locations, you can pick them out every week because they've got something in it. And Jamie does a great job at picking up, that stuff. But if we could provide a reward system for trying to recognize that the neighbors have to take some eyes on the street and the dumpers realize that somebody's has the possibility of making $100 by turning them in, I would think that it might minimize the continual dumping in the regular spots. The other thing is, you know, when we're going into the agenda on the first, you know, difficult topics of HRPB, the docks and parking, if we can just come away with a yes, no, or continual workshop on it. You know, if we can just make a decision on whether we're going to consider it or not, and move forward with decisions. The other thing is, I consider the time and money spent on the empty buildings at L&M not appropriate if we don't have a policy that we're going to be landlords. I think that should be a required vote to set up a policy that the city is going to be a landlord. And if we don't do that, then we shouldn't be spending any more time or money.
Yeah, thank you.
Me and my dog just finished, so.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting we get into the business, but we have a situation that is untenable. And what I propose is a temporary situation for a situation that the city created and needs to take care of.
That's not the best way to fix it, but
Okay.
that's not the best way to fix it.
What's your solution then, Herman? Tear them down?
Yes,
Okay, fine. No, I love it. The city, you know, you can't do anything to your historic house in the city unless you're the city, and then you can tear them down.
Yeah,
That's what-
I
that's
agree
what
with that concern.
change the rules. That's why HRPB is on the agenda.
Ooh,
Madam
how did
Mayor,
that get on the agenda? I'm just curious because it's.
We,
Was it
each
staff?
commissioner, city manager, department heads have an ability to put a line item on an agenda.
that's actually in our rules. Madam Mayor, I believe
how.
the city manager mentioned that that Commissioner Stokes' a statement, but we
Yeah.
want to give her that little piece of the
I
time.
was waiting for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner McVoy, Madam President. Yes, I did receive a statement from Commissioner Stokes, who regret not being here today due to a conflict. And so she did share some issues that she would like to see come forth to the dais in the future, the near future. And so I will read her statement. It says, "I'm sorry that I have another conflict this morning. Can you please read my statement? I'm requesting a presentation followed by a discussion about how to improve customer service in the electric utility department. Recently, I have heard several complaints from various residents about their customer service experience with the electric utility, whether they were calling the number left on a door hanger about their meter or had questions about the vague language regarding the new credit card policy. They were unable to reach a person and found the experience very frustrating. I know we all value customer service and transparency. So I'm requesting that staff put together a presentation about our customer service and electric utility, and it should be accompanied by a discussion item to allow us the opportunity to ask questions and potentially brainstorm some ideas for improvement. I'd like this on the February utility agenda. I anticipate consensus that this should be on our February electric utility meeting. Perhaps we should discuss what would be useful information to each of us. I have listed what I would like to know. The presentation should list exactly what all pieces of our customer service plan are and how they work together. I would like a visual to show the various paths of our automated service. I am imagining something like a tree diagram. I would also like to see what our in-house staffing structure is. I also want to know where our customers go to get this information. I imagine the two main places would be their electric bill and the website. I just want to make sure that we are making it easy to navigate as possible and want to understand what our staffing constraints may be. I expect staff would know of any other useful information to provide us. For example, are there certain policies or expectations around when a customer who leaves a voicemail can expect a return call? I look forward to digging into this topic more at the end of February during our utility meeting. Thanks, Kim. And Madam President, I would like to say, yes, we've had several discussions about this. And of course, I've heard from pretty much each of one of you regarding questions about customer service. So I do know that Mr. Liberty is already preparing, had already instructed him that we've had some questions. We've been in conversation about this matter, and he has prepared a presentation. Matter of fact, he was prepared to answer some questions yesterday at the meeting, because I told him to be ready. So yes, we will welcome a presentation on customer service. And I believe that next utility meeting would be on February 22nd, and we will then present as requested. I'm sorry, Mary, you're on mute.
My dog was barking. I want to thank you, Carmen, for having that started already. It's a very important topic, and I know we all get a lot of feedback from residents about. I called to know, but that's so. Thank you, and thank you, Kim, for bringing that up. Anything else from her?
No, that's it.
That was very good. That was so constructive and concise. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. Anything else before we go?
I would just.
I'm sorry.
I would just very quickly reiterate the concern that Herman raised about noise issues, and some of them are chronic. While I love the art studio also, I've gotten complaints about that. I hear you, Madam Mayor, that apparently it meets the decibel requirement. We may need to relook at that, because maybe in certain locations where you got buildings on both sides or something, I don't know, but I've heard that from a number of people too, that it gets.
We all got the letter. We all got the letter from the.
Well,
You have to be there. You have to really be there to.
I live downtown, Herman. I've seen it. I mean, I know. And I mean, if she's beyond the time, if she's beyond the time that's allowed, fine. If she's above the decimals, that's allowed, fine.
Well, I think what we're hearing is that possibly, at least for that location, we may want to revisit and see whether our rules are protective of a piece of for other folks.
We don't allow speakers outside.
So we don't? I don't know. Is that a rule?
No, we don't.
Madam Mayor.
Well, if that's true, then we can fix it. I mean, that if she's got the speakers outside and that says in the ordinance she's not allowed to do that, then have her put the speakers inside.
Code should notify them then.
It's
I don't know the rule.
It's not, and I didn't know the rule on not allowing speakers outside. That would be a worthwhile thing to look at and make sure that we do or we don't or whatever. There's also a situation on, I want to say Lucerne and E or F, that somebody sets up shop and proceeds with also a loud loudspeaker thing and proceeds to preach away. No problem with religious freedom. I have no problem with that, but it is a real disturbance to the neighbors, and it happens repeatedly. It's been called to PBSO and nothing happens, and it keeps going. Again, maybe that's why I asked Captain Bear, do we need to change our rules? If he's not able to enforce it with what we have, I think empirically what I'm hearing from Herman and I'm hearing from residents is whatever we're doing, whether it's a rule problem or an enforcement problem, it isn't really providing the environment that people reasonably want and have an expectation to, a reasonable expectation.
Madam Mayor,
everybody should follow the rules. Christy?
Madam Mayor, if I may just add, our office is working with PBSO and looking back over our noise ordinance. Traditionally, it is a difficult thing to enforce, but we're going back to look to see if there's something that we could do to perhaps be more effective in this area. So we are looking at it.
Thank you.
Time for coffee.
Thank you. Oh, time for coffee. All right, so have a great day. See you all at 4 o'clock, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And hopefully we'll have a good conversation tonight and come to a realization and get this thing going. Let's get this, I want to go swimming.
Thank you,
I
Madam
wanna
Mayor.
Drink before I do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
you.
See you at 4.